Welcome to Capital Outsider, a show about people and ideas outside the halls of power, exploring alternatives to conventional political wisdom.
Welcome to Capital Outsider. I'm your host, Eric Sundwall. Joining me today are John Wallace and Morris Guller, both of which are running for Congress in New York's 20th Congressional District. John is seeking the nomination for the Republicans, and Morris is seeking to battle the current congressperson, Kirsten Gillibrand. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we start, I would like to take the time to invite other candidates in the 20th Congressional District to join us on Capital Outsider. Both Morris and John have been on the show before, and in terms of fairness, we want to be able to present the invitation to other candidates in the 20th District. Gentlemen, you are both of a slightly older age than myself. You remember in America that perhaps I don't remember. Let's start with...
Boy, oh boy, we're going to start right off by insulting us, aren't you?
How has the country essentially changed in your lifetime, and where do you see it now? We'll start with you, John.
Well, I was in George Washington's campaign staff. Obviously, you mentioned that to start me off. I think where I am with my campaign is it's hard. It's good being on a show called The Outsider, because I'm definitely an outsider even in the Republican Party. I've never held an office. I've never been a committeeman. So I just got so disgusted with what I thought is going on. It has to do with the war a little bit. Me and Morris have differences of opinion on that. It has to do with immigration. It has to do with special interest money, corruption, bribery. It has to do with people passing legislation. They're not reading the bills. They're not even writing the bills. The government's getting bigger and bigger, and they're trying to take more and more control over our lives. Most people are unaware of it. That's why I'm here. I have some very strong views on different things, and I wanted to get involved. I got to a point where I just had to get involved. So that's...
And Morris, you're kind of in a similar position, or your idea as to why are you involved with the Democratic Party? Why are you seeking to primary the current Congresswoman?
Well, in answer to your first question, the way it's different when I was, working on the Washington campaign. First of all, we didn't start a year ahead of time for the presidency, or 2 years ahead of time for the presidency. And there's just so much campaigning going on out there, and it's so money-driven, federal office. You have to have at least $1 million to run for Congress. You have to have at least $20 million to run for Senate and $100 million to run for president. That isn't the way it was ever, and that isn't the way it's supposed to be, and that isn't the way it was set up to be. So that we do have a great deal of corruption. Washington is the most corrupt city in the world, and there's just no way around it until we reform it. I'm running against Kirsten Gillibrand because she made a lot of promises to get elected, and she's broken about 90% of them, or she hasn't gotten around to keeping any of them. She's voted to help fund the war when every other congressional Democratic congressman in New York State voted to stop funding the war. She's the only Democrat, who voted to fund the war. So that was my beginning of getting back into the race, because she promised she'd help stop it. And I want to stop it.
No, I think one of the purposes of tonight's show is not necessarily to contrast you and John as opposing candidates, but you do, in fact, represent opposing parties. John, why are you a Republican? Why have you chosen to run as a Republican? And then, in turn, I'll ask Morris the similar question.
Well, traditionally, the Republican Party, at least the conservative party, I'm a conservative and a Republican. And I think I want smaller government. I always thought that the Republican Party was the party to keep government small. And I'm finding out that after 6 years of the Republicans being in the last president's term, the government has gotten bigger than ever. They listen to the people less. The congressional approval rating is 11, 12% or whatever. They're not listening to what the people want. They're trying to push through an immigration bill. They want to push them through amnesty. There's a lot of connections between the big party people, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And I'm basically for a person that's more conservative, maybe someone who is a business person that feels that they can do a little better. My opinion of the Democrat, and because I've just met Morris tonight, but we've talked a lot on the phone, I always thought the Democrats were extremely liberal and always for big government, more taxes, where I always thought the Republicans would be for smaller governments and less taxes. We've met and talked on the phone on occasions. We find out there's a lot of similarities in what we believe, even though I consider myself a conservative.
Well, now, Morris, let's give you a chance here to defend the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm not going to defend the Democratic Party, especially the way it is right now. But I became a Democrat because the Democratic Party is the party of all the people. If you look at our rank and file membership, it includes everybody, and everybody's welcome. The Republican Party has always put itself out there as more of the country club. A party always said that they want to know you and they want you to vote for them the day before the election and the day after the election. The gates to the community closes and you're not welcome, and you're not welcome at their private clubs. You said something about the Liberal Party, and since I ran as the Liberal candidate, or since I was endorsed by the Liberal Party, I want you to know or remind everybody that the Liberal Party was an outgrowth of the Republican Party through Wendell Willkie. It was it broke off from it didn't break off, but it grew out of the Republican Party as the party of the party to bring common sense to government. How it got the L word during the Reagan administration or even before that is beyond me, but it didn't have the same kind of reputation it has today. That's why I'm a Democrat. I'm glad to be a Democrat. I'm disappointed. I'm as disappointed in the Democratic Party handling of Washington affairs as you probably are of President Bush. I hope you're disappointed in President Bush. But I'm very disappointed in Nancy Pelosi and Senator Reid. We got control of the Congress. We should be doing more with it, but we're not.
Now, I think I know where you're going somewhat with this. What I want to do, and you've both been on the show, and we've discussed this extensively, but just for the record, again, together, what I'd like to ask each of you is to give a quick overview of your position about the Iraq and that situation. If you could do that quickly, there's, of course, these things take time always goes so fast on these shows that, to cover other things, I think we've seen stated issues and ideas with you on the war. If you could state that real quickly and concisely, and then we'll ask Morris the same.
Well, number one, my belief in going to war is we should not go to any war without a declaration of war. This particular war, as in every war since World War II, we've gone to war without them. Agreements, authorizations to go in. The fact is, I had known. I was just a common citizen when we went to war. I wasn't privy to all the facts. Did a lot of research on it, and I found out that the main reason was the weapons of mass destruction. Whether or not people have accused Bush of lying, but when you look at the record, you go back even further into the Clinton administration. Bill Clinton was saying the same thing. Weapons of mass destruction, we're going to have to do something. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. Weapons of mass destruction, we're going to have to do something. We went in. I don't necessarily believe at this point whether we should have gone in, but we're in. I think the question now is, how do you get out?
How about it, Morris? Can we just come home?
Yeah, you just call the troops back to base, put them on planes, and bring them home. The war is based on a lie. And you jump into a swimming pool or a hot tub that's too hot, you get out. It's as simple as that. We're not supposed to be there. It was all a lie. It's all a lie, and you've got 6 or 7 major corporations hauled up to the trough known as the United States Treasury, eating up all our tax dollars, so we can't do anything good for the communities, anything good for the states, anything good for the people. Our economy is almost in shambles because Halliburton, I don't know where they're putting all the money they're making, and Lockheed and all those companies are making all this money off the war. I can't believe it's that transparent, but once we knew it was a lie, you simply say, oh, that was a mistake. Let's bring them. Don't say, oh, well, we're there anyway. Let's kill a few more 100,000 people.
Now, all of the major Democratic presidential candidates, and I would even contend Republican presidential candidates would contend that a precipitous withdrawal is not going to be in the interests of either us or Iraq, and that an immediate withdrawal is going to be problematic. I think you'd find that to be the case when President Clinton appoints Madeleine Albright as Secretary of State and Richard Holbrooke as an advisor. Aren't they going to say, no, we can't just come home? And let's take it out to a farther level. If you're elected as the congressperson for the 20th district, how do you change that? How do you affect that if you become the representative?
Well, first of all, as the representative of the 20th Congressional District, it's my job to represent the people and work for programs within the district. For those national policies that I'm asked to vote for, my stand is we need to get out of Iraq. And it's the most important thing because kids are dying for nothing. And when you say, getting out would be, too quickly would be bad for us, well, we got out of Vietnam real quick, like in a week. We didn't do it on our terms. They pushed us right out into the ocean. But we left, and the world didn't come to an end, and Iraq won't come to an end, and neither will the Middle East, and that's just the way it's got to be. We've just got to cut it and leave. How
about it, John? Do you agree with Mike Huckabee that we can't leave without honor?
Well, I think we can't leave. I think that there's a danger there. There's two main dangers. Number one is that Iraq itself the government will fall apart and there'll be mass murder from both sides. The other part of that is if we leave and just pack up and leave when we're probably winning, and we pack up and leave, Al-Qaeda and radical Islam are going to follow us. I mean, they're already here in the United States. They're going to look at it as a big sign of weakness, and they're going to come after us right here where we live.
The government of Iraq in no way allowed Al-Qaeda into Iraq before all of this was going on. Before we invaded Iraq, the Iraqi government did not allow Al-Qaeda into Iraq. He kept everybody out. I'm not trying to defend the former government, but he kept everybody out. And if you know the Iraqi people, once we leave, they'll get everybody else out. They don't want Jordanians or Syrians or Iranians or anybody else in their territory. They will push them out, take back Iraq, and they'll work it out. It's their country. Give them an opportunity to work it out. We're not there to build them a government.
Well, I'm going to let John respond to that, and we're going to move on after that because we really could take the whole show with this, but I don't want to do that because I know both of you have other issues that you want to be a part of and discuss tonight too.
That's what I thought this was a 10-segment show. No, this is just the first.
Let's do the first segment and see what happens.
Yeah, the only thing I have is that yes, Al-Qaeda was not in Iraq, at least officially, but there was Saddam Hussein was using fundamentalist Islamic terrorists in the northern part of Iraq to attack the Kurds in the northern part of Iraq. He actually did use terrorist groups and paid for them.
One of the things that Morris just set out is the idea that the occupation or the war has adversely affected our economy. I guess I'd turn that around and ask Morris, it's estimated that there's some $66 or $60 trillion of unfunded mandates and liabilities that my kids are going to have to deal with in the future here. How do you reconcile not only the spending that just occurs everywhere in the government? I mean, how can we promise anybody anything at this point?
Hey, folks, that's the libertarian question. I can't tell you how we're going to pay off $66 trillion worth of debt, but I can tell you
unfunded liabilities, I guess we're saying. So we have future liabilities of Medicaid and Social Security.
You keep the country going, you keep the country economically strong, and you make sure everybody's working and everybody who's living here working is paying taxes, and you can have you can manage the economy. And you don't involve the federal government in everybody's business. You keep them out of everybody. You keep them out of everyone's bedroom. You keep them out of all the women's uterus. You keep the federal government out of everything, and let the government go back to what they used to do, which was, I think they began, the federal government, the central government, by regulating standards and measures. So there weren't 13 different
How about it, John? Do managed economies work?
Well, this economy, maybe they use the name manager. It's so out of control. I mean, we have a government that if they pass a budget of $1 trillion and they're $200 billion short, they go out to the garage, which is the Fed, and they print $200 billion worth of money that's backed by nothing. Our country has to get back to spending within our means, as I do, as you do, as Morris does in our own homes. We're spending like there is no tomorrow. All the candidates, Republican, Democrats, they all have new programs. This is $75 billion. This is only $150 billion. There's no money. If we keep paying with paper money, China, India, is holding most of our dollars, that will come home to roost and haunt us.
That's been circulated for the last 40 years. So let me just tell you.
I'm going to let you close on this for the economy, Morris, and we're going to move on to the next.
There's plenty of money in the United States. The United States is the richest country that's ever been known on the face of this earth. But when you start wasting money and throwing it around the way we do, it's hard to have all the programs and continued policies that we want. So our economy's in pretty bad shape. And you saw it today with the stock market. It's opened up 400 points down.
Now, I have to say that even though you guys have been around since the time of Washington, I was very impressed by the fact that, John, you're hosting Blog Talk Radio, and you had Morris on as a guest. And one of the things I noticed was you guys have a very similar conception of immigration. And I guess my question to you, Morris, is what's an old progressive like yourself have against immigrants? And why wouldn't you advocate a change in the law? I can understand why John may not want to do that as a former state policeman to enforce the law.
No, the law is right there. It's just these people are breaking the law. The law's in place, and the law concerning immigration policy in the United States has to be set by the United States government, not by 4 million illegals that come across the border every...
Now, why are they illegal? Because they come over the border?
Yes, and they're not registered, they're not known, they don't pay taxes, none of that. And because once they're in the border, it's kind of like once they're in your home. Once, if you have guests...
I'm an employer, and if I hire somebody, I would think that's between me and whoever I hire, and not necessarily the government that I'm under the control of.
But if you're responsible for paying taxes for that individual and you don't, then you're breaking the law too.
John, I'm going to let you have at it.
No, that was a libertarian there. Let us do everything we want. Don't bother me.
Well, we also, you guys are the ones who control everything, so I'm going to let John decide. Tell me what.
Well, me and Mars actually we're fairly similar on this. The laws already exist. The laws are on the books. It's a terrible thing that we have in this country. We have states like Arizona, Wyoming, Oklahoma have to pass laws in their states so that employers have to be punished by the state now for hiring illegal aliens. They have to pass laws that says you can no longer get social services if you're here in the country illegally. You can't get driver's license if you're in the country illegally. We don't disagree. You don't need 10 pounds of legislation 2 or 3 feet thick to tell us what we need. The laws are there.
The legislation is already there. These people are breaking the law, and our government is going wink, wink, go ahead, break the law, because the agricultural community in those states want these people to come in and work for them because it's cheaper. However, say you're throwing a party in your home, and there's people you don't want to invite to your party, but they get in somehow. In my home or in our party, anyone who's in the party gets treated the same. They're all guests of my household. And once you're inside the borders of the United States, you are going to be given the opportunity of enjoying being in America. And what I mean by that is, I mean enjoy. But if you need to go to the hospital, if you're in if you need to go to the emergency room, I don't care if you're illegal, whatever. They're going to take you to the hospital. They're going to take care of you, and the government may end up paying the bill, and you may end up paying for it through your taxes. So you've got to regulate people coming into this country. It's not just Mexicans either. You've got Australians, and you've got all these people from Europe that come in on work programs, and they never leave, or they leave when they want to. They never pay taxes. They all work in underground type of economies in New York City, and then you probably know about all this. And our government could be doing really well if these people would pay taxes and they would recognize them as workers.
During one of the recent debates with Senator Clinton, Obama, and Edwards, the discussion of energy independence came up. And one of the things that they all agreed upon was that nuclear power was off the table. First of all, how do you feel about nuclear power, and what is your take on energy independence in terms of the country?
Well,
and then we're going to go to John, obviously.
Okay, but I want to say, when you're listening to the candidates speak now, remember they're speaking as candidates, and they're going to say what the people in South Carolina want to hear and what the people in Michigan want to hear.
What do the people in the 20th District want to hear?
People in the 20th District want to hear that since the year 2000, I've been pushing for wind power. It wasn't real popular then, but I've been pushing and pushing, and now slowly, like in Delaware County, we're getting around to it. If we were to put a wind farm, there's a real program now, a wind farm in the Great Northern Catskills where I live and one in the Adirondacks, it would create 7,200 new jobs, $1 billion worth of money coming into the district. It would mean an economic shot in the arm for the 20th Congressional District. Plus, we would have all the electricity we need, plus leftover to sell to Southern Canada.
Real quick, your position on nuclear power.
There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to put the plants in the right place,
John.
not like right around New York City.
Yeah, well, a lot of things have changed with nuclear power, but nobody wants them in their backyard, unfortunately. But now they can actually process that used uranium, and they can reprocess it. You don't have to bury it anymore. You can put it somewhere and recycle it. I agree with Morris. I think wind farms are great, but we should also use what we have in the ground. We have a lot of oil in the ground. We have it off the coast of Florida. We have it off the coast of California. We have it in Alaska. We have it all over the place. A lot of people don't know, but right now Cuba is looking to outsource their oil drilling. They have a vast supply of oil, which happens to be right next to our vast supply of oil in the Florida Straits. It looks like China may be drilling their oil. There's no reason in the world why America should not be drilling their own oil and at the same time trying to convert into more energy efficient vehicles, maybe an alternative. I think probably hydrogen is probably the way to go. Go ahead.
And Eric, I love birds and trees too, but there's absolutely no reason not to open up parts of Alaska to oil exploration. We have the oil. The largest supplier of oil to the United States is the United States, and then Canada, and then Mexico. I don't see us invading Canada for their oil, but God knows, Bush had a third term, you never know what might happen. But you have to come to some reasonable compromise with the way that the country feels, and that's why there was always such a big turnover in the House of Representatives, because the mood would change. But we need to look to ourselves to solve our problems, not try to take oil from Iraq, Iran, wherever.
One of the biggest problems that we have in the country, and John has issued white papers on this in regards to health care and specifically the S-CHIP program. One of my favorite lines from one of the candidates last time around from Warren Redlick was, if we have universal health care, do we also have to provide universal food?
Do we have to provide? You answered that.
I mean, I guess the question is, what's your position on health care?
Well, I think there's people that don't have health care. The SHIP program there, the SCHIP program, was basically a program for poor people to get them into the system. I am not a national health plan person. I think some people may need some help from time to time. No. We should give them some help from time to time.
No.
What my objection to that program was, and there was one sentence in that bill that said that that the states would no longer be required to check the legal residency of the people that were eligible for that program, which would expand it probably to another 5-10 million children. So that's my objection to that program.
But you have 47 million Americans who don't have health care. It's a very simple process. We have Medicare, which takes care of the elderly if you're over 62. We have a program called Medicaid, which takes care of the poor people in the United States. And all you have to do is expand Medicaid out and up to encompass all the people who do not have health coverage, and then give them health coverage. Just that simple. And then you can sit down with Nancy Pelosi and all those people and let them talk it out. But in the meantime, I don't want 47 million people going to bed tonight thinking they can't get health care if they get sick. If they get sick, what are they going to do? It doesn't behoove our country, the richest country in the world, to have people without food, without a place to live, without health care, without those things when we can provide it for them. I mean, we can give them war, we can give them fear, but we can't give them health care. That doesn't make sense.
Well, Medicaid and Medicare are going to break this country as far as money. We're going to be into debt. We'll never get out of it. There's a lot of people here that illegal immigrants, 20 million people there. Most of them are getting free health care as it is. They just show up to the emergency room if they have a sore throat, and they get taken care of.
Yeah, but if you show up at the emergency room, John, it costs, and no one pays, it costs $125 automatically billed to the government. If you have health care, you go to the doctor, and it costs $45 to see the doctor. You save money by not having people run to the emergency room to get a Band-Aid put on their hand.
You know, I think we're going to probably have to have a part 3, 4, 5, and 6 with you guys, because believe it or not, our time is slowly dwindling. We're almost down to about 2 minutes here. And what I want to ask each one of you is, we're on the verge of the South Carolina primary for the Democrats, and of course the primary that doesn't count for the Democrats in Florida. And who are you supporting for president? Can you give us an idea about that and why, if you can do it quickly, and then we're going to wrap it up here and let you each close up your various
John
points.
Edwards, the best person for president. I've been supporting him for the last year, and he would be the greatest, probably one of the greatest presidents our country ever had.
John.
Well, I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm probably leaning more towards Ron Paul as a presidential candidate. We do disagree on the war and stuff, but he really is pushing the government in the right direction. I do have one objection, by the way, to this interview, and the objection is that Morris has brought his attack dog along with him. I don't know if you can take
we do have another guest in the audience here. Morris has brought along one of his campaign supporters, Samantha.
She was brought here for my protection because I'm surrounded by Republicans and Libertarians. I'm the only Democrat in the building, and I'm just hoping to make it out safely.
Real quick, if you guys want to give a minute to the audience in general about your campaigns and what we can expect to see in 2008 here, Morris?
I'm trying to push the idea that we need a real infusion of money and jobs in the 20th Congressional District, and that's what a representative does. There are things you do on the national level that you need to consider also, but I believe that someone who lives here and has lived here, someone who understands the needs and the dreams of the folks who live in the 20th Congressional District, and someone who's willing to work for them should be their next representative, and that would be me.
John?
Well, I hate to say this, Morris, but I agree with you. I think the person who is running, should be the congressman, should live there full-time, not be a weekender or something along those lines. And it should be they should answer to the people and be responsible to the people. They should not be raising money outside the district. They should try to raise all of their money in the district. They should limit special interest money. They should not take money from lobbyists. They should only take money from the local people and be answerable to the local people.
John, don't hurt me.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming on.
It was great.
We're very happy to have you on Capital Outsider. Maybe we can do another show in the summertime. And again, we'll probably do a cutaway to Morris's attack dog. And this has been Capital Outsider. I'm Eric Sundwall, your host. Thank you.
Look at you. Now she's union, so she's gonna have to build the cable company. She belongs to this